Rosa had been cleaning the same house for 12 long years. Every morning at 7 sharp, she would unlock the side door of the big white mansion and step into a world that felt like a movie set. Everything was perfect here. The floors were so shiny you could see your reflection. The furniture looked like it came straight from a magazine. Even the flowers in the vases were changed twice a week. The Wilson family lived in this perfect house. David Wilson owned 3 car dealerships in town and always wore expensive suits. His wife Linda spent her days at charity events and spa appointments. They had 3 kids who went to private schools and took piano lessons and played tennis at the country club. From the outside, everything looked amazing. Rosa knew this because she had seen the family photos in the local newspaper. The Wilsons at the charity gala. The Wilsons at their son's graduation. The Wilsons hosting a fundraiser in their backyard. Everyone in town thought they were the perfect family. But Rosa saw things differently. She was there when the cameras weren't rolling. She noticed that David came home later and later each night. Sometimes he would sit in his car in the driveway for 20 minutes before coming inside, just staring at his phone. When he finally walked through the door, his eyes were red and tired. He would go straight to his office and close the door. Rosa could hear him on phone calls that didn't sound like business. His voice would get louder and more desperate. She heard words like deadline and payment and just give me more time. Once she found him sitting at his desk with his head in his hands. When he looked up and saw her, he quickly wiped his eyes and pretended to be reading papers. Linda was changing too. She used to be friendly and would chat with Rosa about the weather or ask about her family, but lately Linda seemed foggy and distant. She would forget conversations they had just finished. Sometimes Rosa would find her standing in the kitchen, staring at nothing, holding an empty coffee cup. Linda had started taking more and more pills. Rosa saw the bottles lined up in the master bathroom. Pills for sleeping, pills for anxiety, pills for headaches, pills for back pain. Every week there seemed to be new bottles with different labels. Linda would take them throughout the day, washing them down with expensive wine that she started drinking earlier and earlier. The oldest son, Tommy, was 18 and supposed to be getting ready for college. But Rosa noticed strange things about his behavior too. His eyes were often glassy and unfocused. He slept until afternoon most days, even during the school year. His room smelled funny, like burning leaves mixed with something sweet and chemical. Tommy's friends who came over were not the clean-cut kids from his private school. These were older guys with tattoos and beat-up cars who would park down the street instead of in the driveway. They would come and go at odd hours, sometimes when his parents weren't home. Rosa found small plastic bags in the trash can in his bathroom. They were empty but had white residue inside. The 2 younger kids, Lisa and Bobby, were different. They were good kids who did their homework and helped Rosa sometimes. But even they were starting to act strange. They were quieter than before. They spent more time in their rooms. Lisa, who was 14, had started asking Rosa questions about her own family. Questions like whether Rosa's parents ever fought or whether Rosa ever felt scared at home. Bobby was only 10, but he was too smart for his own good. He would ask Rosa why his dad's office door was always locked now, why his mom forgot to pack his lunch for school, why Tommy's friends never wanted to meet his parents. Rosa didn't know how to answer these questions without lying or telling the truth that would hurt him. The house itself was starting to show signs of the family's problems. Rosa would find papers scattered on David's office floor, important-looking documents that he had crumpled up and thrown away. She would smooth them out and put them in neat piles, but she couldn't help seeing words like overdue and final notice and legal action. In Linda's bathroom, Rosa found empty pill bottles hidden behind towels. More and more wine glasses were left around the house, half full and forgotten. Sometimes Linda would change clothes 3 times in one day, leaving expensive outfits crumpled on the floor like she couldn't remember putting them on. The family dinners that used to happen every night had stopped. Now everyone ate at different times or ordered takeout that got left on the counter. The dining room table that Linda had been so proud of was covered with mail that no one was opening and school papers that no one was signing. Rosa tried to keep everything looking normal. She picked up the papers. She washed the wine glasses. She opened the windows to clear the strange smells from Tommy's room. She made sure the younger kids had clean clothes and healthy snacks, but she felt like she was trying to hold water in her hands. No matter how hard she worked, things kept falling apart. The worst part was pretending everything was fine. When Linda's sister came to visit, Rosa watched Linda take extra pills to seem normal during the conversation. When David's business partner stopped by, David would spray air freshener in his office and practice smiling in the mirror before opening the door. When Tommy's school counselor called, Linda would put on her cheerful voice and make excuses about why Tommy was missing so many classes. Rosa felt like she was living in two different worlds. During the day, she cleaned and organized and tried to make everything perfect. But at night, when she went home to her small apartment, she would think about all the things she had seen. She wondered if she should say something. But to whom? And what would she say? She cared about this family. She had watched the kids grow up. She had been there for birthday parties and Christmas mornings and family vacations. They weren't just her employers. They were people she had come to love, even if they didn't always treat her like family. But love sometimes means watching people you care about make choices that hurt them. And Rosa was watching the Wilson family destroy themselves one day at a time. She was the only one who saw it all happening, because she was the only one who was always there, always watching, always cleaning up the messes they left behind. Every morning when she unlocked that side door, Rosa hoped things would be different. Maybe David would come home early and have dinner with his family. Maybe Linda would remember to ask about Rosa's day. Maybe Tommy would go back to being the sweet kid who used to help her carry grocery bags. But every morning, the problems were still there, just hidden a little better than the day before. Rosa knew something terrible was coming. She could feel it in the air like a storm building up. The house felt different now, like it was holding its breath. It started on a Tuesday morning in March. Rosa arrived at her usual time, but David's car wasn't in the driveway. That was strange because he never left before she got there. When she went inside, she found Linda sitting at the kitchen table in her bathrobe, staring at a piece of paper. Her hands were shaking. "Mrs. Wilson, are you okay?" Rosa asked quietly. Linda looked up with tears in her eyes. "They're taking everything, Rosa. Everything we worked for." The paper was from a law office. Rosa couldn't read all the big words, but she understood enough. David's business partner had found out that money was missing from their company. A lot of money. And David was the one who had taken it. Over the next few days, more papers came. More phone calls. Men in suits started showing up at the house, looking around and writing things down on clipboards. They were counting the family's stuff, deciding what could be sold to pay back the money David had stolen. Rosa learned that David had been taking money from the business for over 2 years. He had been using it to pay off gambling debts. He owed money to dangerous people who weren't patient about getting paid back. He had started with small amounts, thinking he could win it back quickly. But every time he lost, he needed more money to try again. The gambling had started small too. A friendly poker game with business friends, some bets on football games. Then David discovered online gambling and everything changed. He could play anytime, anywhere. During lunch breaks, late at night when everyone was sleeping. Even during family dinners, he would excuse himself to check emails, but really he was placing bets on his phone. Linda had no idea how bad things were until the lawyers showed up. She thought David was working late because business was good. She didn't know he was actually at the casino or sitting in his car outside their house, losing their children's college money on poker apps. When the truth came out, Linda didn't handle it well. She started taking more pills to deal with the stress. Rosa would find her passed out on the couch in the middle of the day. Once, Rosa found her unconscious in the bathroom with an empty bottle of pills next to her. Rosa had to call an ambulance. The hospital kept Linda for 3 days. When she came home, she was angry and confused. She blamed David for everything, which was fair, but she also blamed Rosa for calling the ambulance. She said Rosa should have minded her own business. Things got worse when Tommy was arrested. The police came to the house at 6 in the morning, waking up the whole neighborhood. Tommy had been caught selling drugs at his school, not just using them but selling them to other kids. The local newspaper wrote about Tommy's arrest. They didn't mention his name because he was under 18, but everyone in town knew which family it was. The headline read, "Local teen arrested in school drug ring." Rosa saw neighbors whispering and pointing when she walked to her car. David's business collapsed completely. His partner fired him and sued him for the missing money. The 3 car dealerships had to be sold to pay back what David had stolen. Even then, it wasn't enough. The family owed more money than they had. The perfect house started falling apart too. They couldn't pay the mortgage anymore. The bank sent letters saying they had 60 days to move out. But Linda was too sick to pack and David was too ashamed to face anyone. They just sat around waiting for someone else to solve their problems. Rosa watched the family turn against each other like wild animals. David blamed Linda for spending too much money on pills and doctors. Linda blamed David for lying to her about everything. They both blamed Tommy for bringing shame to the family with his arrest. The younger kids, Lisa and Bobby, were caught in the middle. They didn't understand why their parents were always screaming now. They didn't understand why strangers were coming to look at their house. They didn't understand why their friends' parents didn't let them come over anymore. Bobby started having nightmares and would crawl into Rosa's arms when she was working. He would ask her if the family was going to be okay, if they would have to live in their car, if he would have to change schools. Rosa didn't know what to tell him because she didn't know the answers either. Lisa stopped eating properly and started losing weight. She was embarrassed to go to school because everyone was talking about her family. Her grades dropped because she couldn't concentrate. She would lock herself in her room and refuse to come out even for dinner. The fights between David and Linda got louder and scarier. Once, Rosa heard something break upstairs and found them screaming at each other in their bedroom. Linda had thrown a lamp at the wall. David had punched a hole in the closet door. They were both crying and saying terrible things to each other. Rosa tried to keep the house clean and the kids fed, but it was like trying to fix a sinking ship with a bucket. Every day brought new problems. The electricity got turned off because they couldn't pay the bill. The water company sent a final warning. The credit card companies started calling 10 times a day. Tommy came home from jail different. He was quiet and jumpy, like he was scared of his own shadow. The drugs and the arrest had changed him. He couldn't sleep and would walk around the house at night like a ghost. Sometimes Rosa would find him just standing in the kitchen at 3 in the morning, staring out the window. The neighbors who used to wave and smile now looked away when they saw Rosa. Some of them probably blamed her for not saying something sooner. Others just didn't want to get involved in the mess. The perfect reputation the Wilson family had built over years was destroyed in a matter of weeks. Local news stations started driving by the house. They wanted to do stories about the business scandal and the family's fall from grace. David and Linda stopped leaving the house except for court appearances and doctor visits. They were too ashamed to face the community that had once admired them. Rosa felt like she was drowning too. She cared about this family, but she didn't know how to help them anymore. Every day she showed up hoping things would get better, but they only got worse. She was watching people she loved destroy themselves, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The beautiful house that had once felt like a dream now felt like a nightmare. The silence was broken only by crying, fighting, or the sound of another bill collector calling. The perfect family Rosa had known for 12 years was gone, replaced by strangers who looked like the people she once cared about, but acted like completely different people. Rosa started to realize that keeping their secrets wasn't helping them anymore. Maybe it never had. Rosa had never felt so alone in her life. Every morning she would drive to the Wilson house knowing she was walking into a war zone. But she kept going because she didn't know what else to do. This family had been her life for 12 years. Everything changed when the investigators came. They weren't the same people who had come before to count the family's things. These were serious men and women with badges who asked Rosa to sit down at the kitchen table and answer questions. They wanted to know what she had seen, what she had heard, what she knew about the missing money and when she knew it. Rosa felt sick to her stomach. She had always been taught to mind her own business and be loyal to the people who paid her. But now these investigators were asking her to talk about private things she had witnessed, things that could send David to prison, things that could take the children away from their parents. "We know this is difficult," one of the investigators said. Her name was Detective Martinez and she had kind eyes. "But we need to understand what really happened here. When did you first notice something was wrong?" Rosa's hands shook as she thought about all the things she had seen. The late-night phone calls, the hidden papers, the strange visitors, the pills Linda was taking, the drugs Tommy was using. She had kept these secrets for so long that talking about them felt like betraying her own family. "I don't know anything about business," Rosa said quietly. "I just cleaned the house." Detective Martinez nodded. "We understand. But you were here every day. You probably saw things that others missed. Did you ever see David burning papers?" Rosa's heart jumped. She had seen David burning papers in the backyard fire pit, late at night when he thought everyone was sleeping. She had watched from the kitchen window as he fed document after document into the flames. She had even found some half-burned pieces the next morning when she was taking out the trash. I saw him having a fire sometimes, Rosa admitted. What about money? Did you ever see cash hidden around the house? Rosa thought about the envelopes Linda kept hidden in different places. Behind books in the library, in a shoebox in the bedroom closet, in a coffee can in the garage. Linda had told her it was emergency money and asked her not to mention it to David. Rosa had assumed it was normal for wives to have secret money. Now she wondered if Linda knew it was stolen. The questions kept coming, and each one made Rosa feel worse. The investigators knew things. They knew about David's gambling. They knew about Linda's pills. They knew about Tommy's drug dealing. They weren't asking Rosa to tell them new information. They were asking her to confirm what they already suspected. After the investigators left, David came to find Rosa. His face was pale and his hands were shaking. "Rosa, we need to talk," he said. His voice was different now, desperate and scared. He led her to his office and closed the door. Then he did something that shocked her. He got down on his knees in front of her. "Please," he begged. "I know those people asked you questions. I know you saw things. But I'm asking you not to say anything. I have children, Rosa. If I go to prison, what happens to them?" Rosa stared at this man who had once seemed so powerful and confident. Now he was crying and begging her to lie for him. "I can pay you," David continued. "I have some money saved. $50,000. It's yours if you just say you never saw anything unusual. Can you do that for me? For the kids?" Rosa felt dizzy. $50,000 was more money than she made in 2 years. It would change her life. She could pay off her own debts, help her sister who was struggling with medical bills, maybe even buy a small house instead of renting forever. But looking at David on his knees, Rosa realized something terrible. He was asking her to lie so he could keep lying. He was asking her to help him avoid consequences for stealing money and destroying his family. He was asking her to choose his comfort over the truth. "I need to think about it," Rosa said. That night, Linda came to talk to Rosa too. Linda looked terrible. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her hair was messy. She was wearing the same clothes she had worn for 3 days. "The investigators asked about my medicine," Linda said. "You know I'm not a drug addict, right? I just need help sleeping and dealing with stress. The doctors gave me those pills. I'm not like those people on the street." Rosa wanted to tell Linda that she had been watching her take more and more pills every day, that she had found Linda passed out multiple times, that the medicine was destroying her just like David's gambling was destroying him. "If they ask you again," Linda continued, "can you just say that I only took what the doctors told me to take? I can't lose my children, Rosa. They're all I have left." Rosa felt trapped between two worlds. The Wilson family was asking her to help them keep lying, but the investigators were asking her to help them find the truth. Both sides said they were thinking about the children, but Rosa wasn't sure anyone was really putting the kids first. The pressure got worse when Tommy found out the investigators had talked to Rosa. He cornered her in the laundry room one afternoon. "When his parents weren't home, I know they asked you about me," Tommy said. His eyes were angry and scared. "You better not have said anything about my friends or the stuff they brought here." Rosa looked at this young man she had known since he was 6 years old. She remembered packing his school lunches and helping him with homework. Now he was threatening her to keep quiet about his drug dealing. "Tommy, you need help," Rosa said gently. "This isn't who you really are." "You don't know anything about who I really am," Tommy snapped. "Just keep your mouth shut or things could get really bad for you." Rosa realized that Tommy wasn't just asking her to lie. He was threatening her. The sweet little boy she had helped raise was now trying to scare her into protecting his criminal activities. That night, Rosa couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Lisa and Bobby, the 2 youngest kids who hadn't done anything wrong but were suffering the most. They were hungry because their parents forgot to buy groceries. They were scared because their family was falling apart. They were confused because no one would tell them the truth about what was happening. Rosa thought about her own values. Her mother had always taught her to tell the truth even when it was hard. Her priest had always said that helping people sometimes meant refusing to enable their bad choices. Her own conscience was telling her that keeping the family's secrets was hurting them, not helping them. But she also thought about losing her job, about disappointing people who had trusted her, about the $50,000 David had offered her, about the possibility that telling the truth might make everything worse instead of better. Rosa felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, and no matter which direction she jumped, someone was going to get hurt. She had spent 12 years taking care of this family, and now she had to decide whether taking care of them meant protecting their lies or exposing their truth. The weight of all their secrets felt like it was crushing her. She was just one person, but somehow the fate of an entire family was resting on what she decided to do next. Rosa's breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon when she found 12-year-old Lisa hiding in the pantry. Crying. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Rosa asked, kneeling down next to the frightened girl. Lisa looked up with red, swollen eyes. "I'm scared, Rosa. Dad keeps yelling at Mom, and Mom won't get out of bed. Bobby had another nightmare last night, and no one heard him crying except me." Rosa's heart broke as Lisa continued talking. The young girl had been taking care of her little brother because their parents were too busy fighting or too sick to notice what their children needed. Lisa had been making Bobby's breakfast and helping him get dressed for school. She had been doing her own laundry because the dirty clothes were piling up. "I heard Dad talking on the phone yesterday," Lisa whispered. "He said something about the kids having to go live with other people. Are they going to send us away, Rosa?" Rosa pulled Lisa into her arms and held her tight. This sweet, innocent child was terrified that her family was going to be split up, and the worst part was that Lisa's fears might come true if things kept going the way they were. "I don't know what's going to happen," Rosa said honestly, "but I promise you that people who care about you are trying to figure out the best thing to do." That evening, Rosa made a decision that would change everything. She called the investigator, Detective Martinez, and asked if they could meet somewhere private. They agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown the next morning. Rosa barely slept that night. She kept thinking about David begging her to lie for him, about Linda asking her to hide the truth about the pills, about Tommy threatening her to keep quiet about his drug dealing. But most of all, she kept thinking about Lisa crying in the pantry and Bobby having nightmares that no one was there to comfort. At the coffee shop, Rosa sat across from Detective Martinez and made the hardest choice of her life. "I want to tell you everything," Rosa said, "but I need to know that you're really trying to help those children." Detective Martinez leaned forward. "That's exactly what we're trying to do. We want to make sure Lisa and Bobby are safe and taken care of, but we need to understand the whole truth to figure out the best way to help them." Rosa took a deep breath and started talking. She told Detective Martinez about the papers she had seen David burning in the backyard. She described the envelopes full of cash that Linda had hidden around the house. She explained how she had found Linda unconscious from taking too many pills. She talked about Tommy's strange friends and the drugs she had found in his room. But Rosa also told Detective Martinez about the good things. How David used to read bedtime stories to his kids before the gambling took over his life. How Linda used to volunteer at the children's school before the pills made her too confused to function. How Tommy used to be a sweet, smart boy before he got mixed up with drugs. "They're not bad people," Rosa said. "They're sick people who need help. But right now, they're so focused on hiding their problems that they can't see how much they're hurting their children." Detective Martinez listened carefully and took notes. She asked Rosa specific questions about dates and times. She wanted to know exactly when Rosa first noticed each problem getting worse. She asked Rosa to describe the condition of the house and the children's daily routines. Rosa answered every question honestly, even when it hurt to say the words out loud. She felt like she was betraying people she loved, but she also felt like she was finally doing the right thing. After they finished talking, Detective Martinez explained what would happen next. Rosa's testimony would be used to help the court understand the family's situation. The goal wasn't to punish the parents, but to make sure the children were protected while the adults got the help they needed. "You did the right thing," Detective Martinez said as they prepared to leave. "Those children needed someone to speak up for them." Rosa drove home feeling both relieved and terrified. She had finally told the truth, but she knew there would be consequences. The Wilson family would find out what she had done, and they would probably hate her for it. The next few days were the longest of Rosa's life. She continued going to work at the Wilson house, but everything felt different. She couldn't look David in the eye, knowing she had told the investigators about the money he had been hiding. She couldn't talk normally with Linda, knowing she had revealed the truth about the pill problem. She avoided Tommy completely, afraid of how he might react if he knew what she had done. Lisa and Bobby seemed to sense that something was changing. They stayed close to Rosa whenever she was in the house, like they knew she was the only adult they could trust to keep them safe. Rosa's worst fears came true on Monday morning when David confronted her in the kitchen. His face was dark with anger, and his hands were clenched into fists. "I know what you did," David said in a low, dangerous voice. "The investigators knew things they could only have learned from you." Rosa's heart pounded, but she stood up straight and looked David in the eye. "I told them the truth." "The truth?" David shouted. "You betrayed us. After everything we've done for you, you stabbed us in the back." Linda appeared in the doorway looking weak and confused. "Rosa, how could you? We trusted you with our family's private business." "Your private business was hurting your children," Rosa said firmly. "Lisa is 12 years old and she's taking care of Bobby because you two are too sick to do it yourselves. Bobby is having nightmares because he's scared his family is falling apart." I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Tommy came downstairs when he heard the shouting. When he saw what was happening, his face turned red with rage. "You're going to pay for this," Tommy told Rosa. "You have no idea what you've done." Rosa felt afraid, but she also felt stronger than she had in months. For the first time in a long time, she had done something that felt completely right, even though it was the hardest thing she had ever done. "I've worked for this family for 12 years, Rosa said calmly. "I've watched you all grow up. I've kept your secrets and cleaned up your messes and pretended everything was fine when it wasn't, but I won't watch those children suffer anymore while you destroy yourselves." David fired Rosa on the spot. He told her to pack her things and never come back. Linda cried and said Rosa had ruined their last chance to keep the family together. Tommy made threats about what would happen to Rosa if his friends found out what she had done. But as Rosa gathered her cleaning supplies and prepared to leave the house for the last time, Lisa ran downstairs and hugged her tight. "Thank you," Lisa whispered in Rosa's ear. "Thank you for trying to help us." Rosa realized that losing her job was a small price to pay for finally speaking up for the children who couldn't speak up for themselves. Rosa lost her job, but she didn't lose her purpose. The day after David fired her, she woke up in her small apartment and realized something important. For the first time in months, she felt peace. She had finally done what her heart had been telling her to do. The court proceedings moved quickly. Rosa's detailed testimony helped the judge understand exactly what had been happening in the Wilson house. She described the timeline of David's gambling problem, the progression of Linda's pill addiction, and Tommy's involvement with drugs. Most importantly, she painted a clear picture of how Lisa and Bobby had been affected by their parents' problems. Rosa's testimony wasn't used to punish the family. Instead, it was used to create a plan to help them heal. The judge ordered David to attend gambling addiction treatment and perform community service instead of going to prison. Linda was required to enter a rehabilitation program for her pill addiction. Tommy was sentenced to a youth treatment center, where he could get help with his drug problem while finishing his education. Lisa and Bobby were placed temporarily with Linda's sister, who lived in the same town. This meant they could stay in their same schools and visit their parents regularly, while the adults worked on getting better. Rosa watched all of this happen from a distance. She read about the court decisions in the newspaper and heard updates from other people in the neighborhood. She worried about the children and wondered if she had made the right choice. The answer came 6 months later when she ran into Linda at the grocery store. Rosa almost didn't recognize her. Linda looked healthy for the first time in years. Her eyes were clear and focused. Her hair was clean and styled. She was wearing simple clothes instead of expensive outfits, but she looked more beautiful than Rosa had ever seen her. "Rosa," Linda said, walking over slowly. "I've been hoping I would see you." Rosa braced herself for anger or accusations. She expected Linda to blame her for everything that had happened to the family. Instead, Linda started crying. "Thank you," Linda said through her tears. "I know you probably think I hate you, but I wanted to thank you." Rosa was shocked. "Thank me? For what?" "For saving my life," Linda said simply. "For saving all of our lives." Linda explained how the forced treatment had opened her eyes to how sick she had become. She had been taking so many pills that she couldn't think clearly or take care of her children properly. She had been living in a fog, pretending everything was fine while her family fell apart around her. "I was angry at you at first," Linda admitted, "but my counselor helped me understand that you were the only person brave enough to tell the truth when everyone else was lying. Including me." Linda told Rosa that David was doing well in his gambling treatment program. He had gotten a job at a regular car lot, making much less money than before, but he was learning to live within his means. He attended meetings 3 times a week and hadn't placed a bet in 6 months. Tommy was making progress too. The treatment center had helped him get clean, and he was working on his high school diploma. He had written letters to Rosa apologizing for threatening her and thanking her for caring enough about his family to speak up. "But the best part," Linda said, "is that Lisa and Bobby are happy again. They're living with my sister, but they come to visit us twice a week. They're not scared anymore. They're not having nightmares. They know that the adults in their lives are finally telling the truth and getting help." Rosa felt tears streaming down her own face. "Are they angry with me?" "The opposite," Linda said. "Lisa talks about you all the time. She says you're her hero because you stood up for her when she couldn't stand up for herself." Linda reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "She asked me to give this to you if I ever saw you." Rosa unfolded the paper and found a drawing Lisa had made. It showed Rosa and Lisa holding hands with the words, "Thank you for saving my family," written in careful handwriting at the bottom. Rosa couldn't stop crying. She had spent months wondering if she had destroyed the family she loved. Now she realized she had actually saved them. Linda told Rosa that the family had learned important lessons from their crisis. They had learned that keeping secrets and pretending everything was fine had made their problems worse, not better. They had learned that asking for help was not shameful but necessary. They had learned that love sometimes means refusing to enable someone's destructive behavior. "We lost our big house and our fancy cars," Linda said, "but we found our family again. We found honesty. We found hope." Rosa learned that other people in the community had been inspired by her courage. Word had spread about how the family's housekeeper had risked her job to protect 2 children. Other domestic workers started coming to Rosa for advice when they witnessed problems in the homes where they worked. Rosa decided to start her own small cleaning business. She hired 3 other women who needed second chances, including one who had been fired for reporting abuse and another who had been blacklisted for refusing to lie for her employer. They called their business Truth Cleaners and specialized in helping families who were going through difficult times. Their reputation for integrity and compassion spread quickly. They were hired by lawyers to clean homes during divorce proceedings, by social workers to help families prepare for visits from Child Protective Services, and by treatment centers to help people maintain clean, organized homes during recovery. Rosa's business grew slowly but steadily. She never made as much money as she had working for the Wilson family, but she made enough to live comfortably. More importantly, she woke up every morning knowing that her work was making a positive difference in people's lives. 2 years after the court proceedings, Rosa received an invitation that brought tears to her eyes. Lisa was graduating from middle school and wanted Rosa to attend the ceremony. The invitation was signed by the whole family, including David, Linda, and Tommy. At the graduation, Rosa sat with the Wilson family like she belonged there. David shook her hand and thanked her for having the courage he hadn't had. Tommy, now clean and working part-time while finishing high school, apologized again for the way he had treated her. Linda hugged her and whispered that Rosa would always be part of their family. But the best moment came when Lisa walked across the stage to receive her diploma. As she passed Rosa in the audience, she smiled and mouthed the words, "Thank you." Rosa realized that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to help them hide from the truth. Sometimes saving a family means being willing to risk everything to speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves. The Wilson family was no longer perfect, but they were real. They were honest. They were healing. And they were together again, not because someone had covered up their problems, but because someone had cared enough to expose them. Rosa had learned that being loyal to someone doesn't mean protecting their lies. True loyalty means loving them enough to tell the truth, even when the truth is hard to hear and harder to speak.